Was Sonic Frontiers way past cool, or did gamers run out of speed? Let's find out if anyone played it. Everyone welcome, I am Old Bit and this is Did Anyone Play, a series where we investigate, analyze, and determine the truth about how much gamers have truly played and completed games. How do we do this? We use trophy and achievement milestones within games and then compare those results to our huge gaming database to evaluate and rank games compared to the rest of the industry. Using objective data and statistical comparisons, we can draw conclusions. We aren't reviewing the game in a traditional sense. Our goal is to provide analysis that can be better used to understand player behavior while ignoring game sales and hype to ensure we see reality as it truly is. Please drop a like or a sub to the channel if you want more of these types of videos. We're just starting out, so anything you can do is very much appreciated. And a quick spoiler warning as we may be talking about some elements of late game progression. So let's find out if anyone actually played Sonic Frontiers on Xbox, PlayStation 4 and 5, and Steam. Remember that all percentages we'll be talking about here come from the total number of players that have actually launched and or played the game, not bought the game, so these results are a full reflection on how gamers played Sonic Frontiers. The first milestone that players will likely reach is called Unknown Threat. This milestone is achieved once a player defeats a Guardian for the first time. This will happen during the linear tutorial area on Kronos Island, and a player must complete the fight with Ninja in order to continue, so it can't be missed. How many players made it to this first early milestone? On Steam, 91.6% of players beat a Guardian. PS4 had 78.9%, PS5 had 75.9%, and Xbox saw 71.8% of players do this. Consoles are showing some weakness here. Let's go to the graph. Frontiers is doing great on Steam, which is well above the industry average, but consoles are hovering right around that average. The concerning part is considering how early this milestone happens, just 10 minutes or less into the game most likely. Frontiers has lost over 20% of players on the best performing console and worse on the others. This is not a great start and shows a serious player retention issue at the start of the game. We'll have to see if Sonic can recover. So what is Sonic Frontiers? It's a single-player action-adventure platformer, and Sonic's first jaunt into a larger semi-open world environment. In Frontiers, the player is tasked with exploring the Starfall Islands to collect the Chaos Emeralds. Sonic has been separated from his friends and works to save them, defeat Guardians and Titans, and save the day as usual. There are cyberspace levels that play like traditional 3D Sonic titles, in addition to the open area exploration. The story takes about 22 hours to complete, and it was developed by Sonic Team and published by Sega, and Frontiers released on November 8th of 2022. The second milestone all players would likely reach is called The Journey Begins. This is awarded after a player completes the Kronos Island tutorials. Essentially, a player will complete their first cyberspace stage, learn to control Sonic, complete challenges, fight some enemies and Guardians, play a second cyberspace stage, and ultimately complete the tutorial to exit the area. How many players made it here? Steam has 80.2% of players achieving this. PlayStation 4 is at 62.5%, PS5 is at 57.1%, and Xbox is at 61.1%. Steam is still going strong with only 20% of players gone at this point, but consoles have lost nearly 40% of players at this point. It's another strong drop, but all platforms at this point are above the industry average. It's always good to understand the competition a game was up against when it was launched. What was happening around November 8th, 2022 in the gaming world? Well, titles like God of War Ragnarok, Pentiment, and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 came out around this time on the platforms. Looking at Google Trends here, we see that Frontiers in blue was low at the time of release, and with strong competition from God of War and Call of Duty. So it's clear that the hype was below average for Sonic Frontiers and the competition was strong as well. We'd like to pick a mid-game marker for our third milestone. Here we have chosen Futile Resistance. This is awarded for completing the main story on Chaos Island. The fun part for this one is that you have to complete a pinball minigame to reveal the final Titan boss fight for this island. It's a great callback. How many players reached this milestone? Steam has 34.6% of players, PlayStation 4 has 19.1%, PS5 has 15.2%, and Xbox has 18.4%. This drop is large, and for Steam it's just holding above average, but the consoles have all dropped well below the industry average, and more than that are below 20% of players left even at this mid-game milestone. It's not a good look. So how did Sonic Frontiers do with critics? Metacritic for PlayStation rates it at 70 out of 100. Xbox got a 61. On Steam, users have rated it very positive all-time and recently with over 17,000 reviews. OpenCritic rating is at a 71 with 55% of critics recommending it. I think we can say the reception was mixed for Frontiers. The most important milestone is our fourth one. This is for completing the main objective and what we base our industry ranking on. It definitely shows how many players finished the game and truly played Sonic Frontiers. This milestone is called a Land at Peace and is awarded when a player defeats the final threat and completes the main story. Where does Frontiers end up on the different platforms? On Steam, 30.7% of players completed the game. For PlayStation 4, it was 16.3%, on PS5 it was 13%, and on Xbox it was 15.8%. This is actually a very strong hold for players from the Midgame Milestone. Now that we've reached the end of the game, we want to check the percentage of players that quit the game after making it through the first milestone but failed to reach game completion. Frontiers shows a bit of a mixed bag again, which is the trend for this game. Steam performs better than the industry average at keeping players, but the consoles, with PS5 being the worst, definitely did not do better at keeping players around. Finally, to get a feel for how the completionists treated this game, the rare milestone 5 chosen for Frontiers is called Expert Historian. This milestone can be achieved if the player views all optional side story cutscenes. For Steam, we see that 14.2% of players actually accomplished this. On Xbox, 5.8% did it, PS4 had 6.8%, and PS5 had 6.3% that achieved this. Now, let's see the full picture. Here are the raw milestones for Sonic Frontiers with the industry averages in gray for comparison purposes. Let's get into it. Frontiers performed best on Steam, that is abundantly clear in the graph. The consoles all performed close to each other, with the PS5 being the worst. There is a lot of player retention issues early in Frontiers, but there is an excellent hold from Milestone 3 to 4, and you can see that clearly in this graph. Not only that, but the rarest milestone is actually very successful on Frontiers and is well above the industry average for all platforms. So this is our final tally for our milestones, but now let's see how the game stacks up against all other games in our database and find out if anyone truly played Sonic Frontiers. We use Milestone 4 as our ultimate ranking target. Here are the results for each platform for Milestone 4 once again. It's time to reveal the final rank Frontiers has in our database. Here we go. Steam is 7 out of 10, Xbox is at a 4, PS4 is at a 4, and PS5 is at a 3. So on Steam, a decent number of players played Sonic Frontiers. But for Xbox and PS4, a below average number of players played it. And worse yet, not many people played it on PS5. This is definitely a mixed result, especially for a mainline Sonic game. The player retention on Frontiers was a struggle on console, but Steam is the bright spot. So those are the industry rankings, but our database is able to give us other comparisons as well. Let's break it down. Here we can show the breakdown for Frontiers across class, genre, review score, and game length. Please keep in mind that because we are comparing data across smaller subsets, the statistical power of these rankings are far weaker than our overall industry ranking. Starting off with class comparison, Frontiers is a AAA game, so ranking it compared to all other AAA contemporaries, we can see the results are slightly weaker. Steam lowers to a 6, PS4 is down to a 3, with PS5 and Xbox down to a 2. Gamers played it less compared to other AAA titles. How about genre? We have classified Frontiers as an action-adventure game. Compared to other games in that genre, we see that it ranks 6 on Steam, PS4 at 3, with PS5 and Xbox down to 2 again. So just like class, Frontiers was played less with respects to genre. Next is ranking based on reviews. The scores for Frontiers put it in the category with games that have scored in the 70s for OpenCritic. The review rankings compared to other similarly reviewed games has Steam rise to an 8, Xbox holds at 4, but PlayStation results move to a 4 and 5 for both those consoles. So one bright spot is that Frontiers players played it more as compared to other similarly scored games. Lastly is ranking based on average game completion length. Frontiers is in the 11 to 25 hours range. Rankings compared to similar length games has no change for Steam or Xbox, but a slight increase for PlayStation platforms. So those are the rankings, but let's see if we can tease out some other observations by looking at these results in different ways. It's time for the deep dive. Let's start with progressive player loss. Each group shows how many total players have stopped playing the game at that particular milestone. Steam clearly shows strength here, but this also highlights the large player retention problem Frontiers has at milestones 1 through 3. Moving on, we can look at milestone player retention. This calculation only takes into account the player population loss as a percentage compared to the previous milestone. Milestones 1 and 2 are not good for the consoles, but Milestone 3 is devastating for all platforms. It's even worse than Milestone 5, which is something we never really see. One big positive is the very strong result for Milestone 4, which shows that players that made it past Milestone 3 tended to stick around to the very end. How about completionists? How did the rarest milestones shake out on the different platforms? Steam is strong here with over 40% of the overall take, with the rest being split pretty evenly between the other 3 platforms. Finally, we check on early versus late game retention. When you read a chart like this, the best performers are further away from the center of the circle. Early game Steam is running away with the win and even shifting off my graph. Endgame loss Steam is still doing very well and the consoles remain bunched up together. Completionist loss actually shows that PS5 outperformed all other platforms with Xbox coming in last. Let's take one final look at all the platforms and their Milestone 4 results, but this time we show you the full percent rank within our database. This is to give you a detailed view of how the rankings played out. Use this data as you will. Let's wrap this up. So what are our major takeaways from all the data? All the way through our analysis, Sonic Frontiers has been a bit of a grab bag of results. Steam's ranking was solid, but all others were below average or worse. It does seem that the Steam crowd was far more engaged with this Sonic game than the console crowd is. I would also love to see Switch results, but alas, they don't do milestones yet. Maybe someday. No matter how you look at Frontiers though, the player retention was not good early on. Even through a short tutorial, the loss of players was big, and even bigger around the middle of the game where we saw the drops larger than most games hit at that stage. And we did see that Frontiers didn't review strongly, but our breakdown showed that it performed better against similarly reviewed games. That could indicate that the review scores for this game were a bit on the low side compared to how players actually engaged with it. But what caused the clear disconnect a good portion of players had with Sonic Frontiers? Was the story not engaging right out of the gate? Were the visuals lackluster or the gameplay wanting in some way? When I played this, I found the visuals to be a bit underwhelming for sure, but there was a lot to enjoy in terms of traversal and exploration, certainly enough to keep me playing. I ultimately platinumed this game on PS5, but I can understand why players left by mid-game. I don't understand why players left before the tutorial ended at the high percentages they did. Clearly something did not keep player attention and they didn't care to experience more. Sonic is a mascot not only of Sega but of the entire gaming industry. With successful movies, animated series, games, toys, and merchandise all doing well, sometimes the games don't hit as strong as you'd expect. Sonic Frontiers looks to be one of those games. Frontiers has a lot going for it, and there is innovation here for a Sonic title that can be built on with future titles. But something about Frontiers did not connect with players the way it should. PC players kept the fight alive, but console players opted out faster than expected. That's an area that Sonic Team must improve on in the future because we all deserve the best Sonic gaming experience. And that's a wrap. Hopefully you all found this data interesting and we all learned a little bit more about our gaming world today and Sonic Frontiers in particular. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to do all the YouTube support stuff. Give us a like and a sub if you haven't already. I'd love to read any comments you have down below. What conclusions do you all take from this data? And of course, feel free to suggest the next game we should look at to determine if anyone played it. Until then, take care of yourself and each other.